Greetings. This is Celebration. My name is John Savers. I'm your host, and today we'll continue with our series, Jews and Their Culture. Now, for those of you new to Celebration, this is a program which looks at people and their cultures and tries to get a better understanding what makes them tick. We may look at the good or the mundane, the bad, and trying to get a better picture. Now, often people are familiar with the better aspects of peoples and their cultures through magazines and whatnot that paint a certain positive image. So I do wish to take judicial notice of this rather extensive lore and include it herein as a given. Now, on the other hand, to get a proper understanding, we also need to look in other places. Otherwise, we cannot have a rounded view, a complete understanding. There will be missing parts. So, in trying to fill in these gaps, to do these kinds of things, which will create a better understanding, we do use, of course, standard references, authoritative books, encyclopedias, and so forth. And we also use, on occasion, little-known books, sometimes self-published booklets, bulletins, and so forth, which we feel are credible and present information which, if correct, certainly warrant an understanding and airing, as it were. So we do this also. Now, in the past episode, we did touch upon the question of Jewry in regard to fundamental ideas, touched upon the 613 mitzvot, the fundamental laws that are at the base of most congregations of Jewry. Now, of course, there have to be interpretations, and rabbis do not always see eye to eye on every passage in the Talmud. In fact, there can be quite pronounced differences. These differences can be almost diametrically opposed. To reconcile this sort of problem, however, rabbis early on developed the notion that when two branches are going in different directions and so forth and seem to be opposed, that both should be considered correct to be manifestations of divine inspiration. So when you have leadership of, say, a Rabbi Akiva and another under Rabbi Hillel, and they are opposed and so forth, both sides are considered correct and divinely inspired. Now, the congregations are also expected to adhere to the views of the rabbis, the definitive views particularly which come from, in the past, the so-called centers of Jewry. Now, this would be probably where you would find the Sanhedrin or the Gaonim. These authoritative areas of Talmudic opinion would radiate to the various communities, and of course Jewry should be considered a global archipelago of Jewish communities. Now, we do have, in this particular case, pressure and discipline upon the congregations to adhere, and they are admonished if the rabbi says that right is left or that left is right, it is your duty to believe, accept. ponder. And of course, it is definitely encouraged for Talmudic students to interpret, to try to unearth, to know about a word, a concept, a phrase, and so forth, to find perhaps new meaning, to develop a sort of a seminal concept or interpretation, which, if not immediately valuable, will probably prove fruitful in the future. So we have in this, therefore, a very life-preserving force, a protean interpretation, which gives a lot of strength, I think, to Jewry, and this utilitarian interpretation, this protean shape-changing kind of way of looking at things has been a real article of preservation for Jewry through the centuries. Now, in the past, we, as I mentioned, looked at the question of truth, lying, and so forth, and how it was perceived by Jews, and we took a look at a citation. I thought that I might give a couple of more examples of this kind of thing. We are all sinners, of course, so we miss the ideal a lot. We see this often, and one example that I gave is that of the wife of the former head of the AFL-CIO, Mrs. Lane Kirkland, who is Jewish, and who spoke of, I think, an ancestor, a grandmother or something like this, barely escaping the death camp at Dachau or Belsen or something of this sort. But it just so happens that the concentration camp mentioned was not a death camp, and so this was in the order of a fib. We also have the wife of the senator who ran for president with Gore, ran for vice president with Gore, and she made a similar comment, I think in her case, Buchenwald. But at any rate, that too was not a death camp, so again we have these little fibs which kind of give a misrepresentation of reality. So this kind of thing happens, and it is this tension, this sick at nine, yes and no, the high ideals and the practical ways of the world. Let's take a look at that. In Judaism, the importance of truth is just as important, if not more important, than the law. It says, Haggai 14a, that one should judge the truth of the Torah, but most of the time the truth can be established by the facts. But when it cannot, truth supersedes the law. Now this is a citation from Rabbi Nachum Amsel, the Jewish Encyclopedia of Moral and Ethical Issues, page 293. So we have this emphasis, which, and I gave a number of citations in that particular episode, which more than adequately, I think, underlined this viewpoint, which is voiced in amongst the rabbis and official authoritative ways of doing. There are, of course, more than one school, and those rabbis who are very specific as to just Israel and its relationship to God and the rest of the people and their relationship, there can be different interpretations. It is, of course, a view amongst this group generally speaking, that those people outside of Israel do not constitute people in the fullest sense. But let me give you a citation which will kind of bring this out. Dr. Roman A. Foxbrunner of Harvard University quotes the founder of the Lubavitch Hasidim, Rabbi Zalman, as follows: Gentile souls are of a completely different and inferior order. They are totally evil with no redeeming qualities whatsoever. Their material abundance derives from supernal refuse. Indeed, they themselves derive from refuse, which is why they are more numerous than the Jews. According to Rabbi Zalman, all Jews were innately good, all Gentiles innately evil. This is a citation from Michael A. Hoffman II, Judaism's Strange Gods, page 69. Well, folks, in that citation, I think we're seeing an interpretation of the Cabala which is very specific, and one in which Israel specifically is being considered, and in this sort of interpretation, the Malkut in Israel are viewed as pretty much synonymous. And in this particular view, there is only one group of people, that is Jews, Israel misnamed, who can evolve back into the Godhead as children of God, children of light, and all other people would fall onto the left side as unclean, this dark side, the female side, and so forth, which are scheduled for annihilation. In fact, it's not possible for Israel in this interpretation to return to the crown without, first of all, seeing the annihilation of the left side, the dark side. So there is a certain impel to help that process along, and some people think that has been done. Now, we do also just mention in passing that we imply that the Cabala has a multitude of possible applications, interpretations, from economics to politics and so forth. There may be what is called the Broid Cabala interpretation, which Freemasons may ascribe to, in which everyone, every human has a spark of life or divinity, what might be called a circle of emanation within them, and that these circles of emanation, these little sparks of light, are surrounded by dark and light forces, good and evil, as it were. The tree of life suggests a shadow tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and at any rate, it does seem to have application. The idea is, if you think of the dark side and the light side as those two tadpole-like creatures chasing their tails that you sometimes see in designs within a circle, you have a fair idea of the situation which is to be achieved, because in the crown all opposites are reconciled. In fact, it appears that the left side is annihilated or made into merely a potentiality, and everything is he and light and the right side. So it is the idea is to get this little circle of emanation through the process of evolution, consciousness raising, and all that, so that it expands and comes to surround this dark tadpole and this light set tadpole, so to speak. And when you have engulfed them both, then you will have presumably achieved Godhead. Interestingly enough, of course, this whole thing proceeds from nothing, from a sea of nothingness, borderless, great void, and from this, the Ein Sof, the negative veils, proceeded the first emanation. There's sometimes called the crown, the tip of the tree. I think sometimes Adam Cadmus in some interpretations. But at any rate, it's the tip of the tree and includes all that is. All that is then unfolds through a generative process. There are 10 circles plus another which is unnumbered. That one splits into 2, and then 2 and 3 generate 4, and so forth down to the 10th, the Malkut, which in this interpretation which we have just given, which is very specific and which speaks as of Gentiles as unclean, we have the Malkut, which is all the universe, all the observable sensual realm. In between are such things as wisdom and these emanation circles and things of that sort. Now, the process of in Freemasonry can be symbolized by the intertwined triangles. Both Freemasons and Jews understandably try to connect with the Torah, and certainly they can connect with Solomon, who went astray, apparently the first Israelite, to great importance to lead them in toto in the wrong direction. But this is thought possibly due to his marrying all the wives, many of which were heathens, and instituting Baal worship and Astaroth, and a.k.a. Astarte. And Baal symbolizes the triangle above in Astarte, the triangle below. The triangle below being the female, and the triangle above being the male. So you have a thoroughly generative situation here. And as I mentioned, the road to the crown, to the tip of the tree, can only be accomplished by means of magic. And the most efficacious use, which are a means of magic, is sexual orgasm. Of course, it's very important that you don't think about sex when that occurs. And in the process, all the psychic and natural forces are unleashed, and for many, hopefully against Christianity and the dark side. So there are many people out there practicing all this kind of stuff. But at any rate, this is all fundamental, so you understand a little bit better why today there is so much benign views toward sexuality and encouragement, and all kinds of magazines talking about it and so forth like this, encouraging it, because it is a fundamental of this particular group. In fact, the day may come when if they are successful and the whole world is part of their group, they may demand that every couple in the world have sex at a certain point in time, and then have an orgasm at a specific time, and then unleashing this force. Who knows what wonderful thing will happen. But at any rate, this is this kind of thinking. So we can see how some rabbinic notions seem rather bizarre. It's basically due to a specificity of the Cabala, although the entire Kabbalized crew is pretty strange. But let's go ahead and take another look at the question of truthfulness and cheating. Let me give you a citation. Cheating is classified in Jewish terms as genaivat das, which can be translated as stealing someone's thoughts, fooling someone, or receiving undeserved benefit. It is a form of stealing, clearly a prohibition for Jews as well as non-Jews, Hilkot Mekira 18:1. Many students who cheat would never think of actually stealing, but in Judaism the two are equated. In fact, according to the Tosefta Bava Kama 7.3, cheating is the worst form of stealing. This is a citation from Nachum Amsel, the Jewish Encyclopedia of Moral and Ethical Issues, page 107. Now, people, as I mentioned, we are taking a sic et non approach, yes and no. We have what I have, I believe, is a pretty sound and advanced concept here. And yet we see numerous examples of what appear to be variations, shall we say, or falling away. We're all sinners, of course, but we do see some marked missing from the Jewish community. How could this happen? Well, in some instances, it's perspective. For instance, for me, the whole business of the Holocaust is a fraud and a hoax, and it was used to enslave the German people into paying tribute to the nation which was to come into be, the state of Israel, and that was done. But it's not just that the people of Germany were coerced into paying tribute, it seems like forever, to this particular state, and to the people outside the state as well, and in a sense paying double. We also see in the United States how senators and representatives who are thought to be controlled by the state of Israel and by Jews in the United States to have enacted legislation which provides Israel with money, the state of Israel, always sufficient to pay the interest on previously earned grants and so forth. So that if Israel is in a position, the state of Israel is in a position where it never has to pay back because it can always ask for another loan or grant of money sufficient to take care of the situation, it has actually a free ride and is receiving tribute rather than a loan. And I think this is what happened on the cheat, on the sly, and this was pulled off with the political element in full awareness of what they were doing, but preferring to be re-elected to doing that which was right. Well, we see this kind of problem all the time. We see the head of the World Jewish Congress, I think, Mr. Edgar Bronfman, trying to extort money for the Holocaust stuff again and whatnot. So there's no end to these efforts at getting loot, and it looks to me like ill-gotten loot. But if you think, as Jews sometimes do, some elements within Jewry, that only a Jew is a full-blown human being and that the rest are glorified animals, then there is an understanding of this procedure a little bit better, because certainly no one would consider it a moral falling down or falling back or falling away to tell a fib or a lie to a burro or to a horse or to a dog or a pig or something of this sort. So it may well be perceived in telling a lie to a non-Jew, sometimes called a Gentile. That is itself a curiosity, because Gentile derives from goy, a goyim, which is the word that Yahweh Elohim gave to Abraham, saying that he would be the father of many nations, using goy, a goyim. Well, this may be a subtle way by which Jews are disassociating themselves from a relationship from Abraham. I can't say. But at any rate, there is that curiosity. So with this all in mind, let's proceed a little further with sic et non. Please consider. A 23-year-old Jewish medical student arrested in Basel, Switzerland, was described by police as the perpetrator of a campaign of virulent anti-Semitic graffiti, harassment, and death threats. Police disclosed that Philip Gottschall, son of a prominent family, was solely responsible for the acts which were called unprecedented in Switzerland. Most of the anti-Semitic acts were directed against fellow Jewish students, their families, and their non-Jewish friends. This is a citation from Laird Wilcox, The Hoaxer Project Report, page 15. The idea here seems to be to generate a sense of persecution amongst Jews, a group of Jews, maybe with publicity to go global with the idea of this persecution, and by this means to discipline and confine Jewry within a symbolic ghetto. But let's go ahead and hear another. Often a false charge of anti-Semitism or racism is made because of values, opinions, or beliefs expressed in a public forum. In the case of Thomas Spears of Waterbury, Connecticut, however, his expression of free speech landed him in court, and at the behest of the very host of the radio talk show he appeared on. Spears was arrested after radio talk show host Jay Clark, who is Jewish, filed a complaint with police. Among the accusations made against Spears was that he was guilty of Jew baiting because he frequently criticized Israel. Clark also testified that he frequently made personal attacks against Spears on the air. Spears contended that he was not anti-Semitic and that he was merely anti-Zionist and anti-Israel. In ordering the acquittal of Spears, Superior Court Judge Anthony V. DeMayo said, "What upsets me most about the state's position is that the reason we are prosecuting this defendant is that his views differ so vehemently from those of the talk show host." That's all the time we have. This is Celebration.